أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري يسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي آمين يا رب العالمين. All right, assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to this seminar that will hopefully illuminate some issues pertaining to revelation and reason. And both of these are actually starting points for two courses that we have coming up. I'm just going to introduce myself and then explain why we have decided to work out a track on specific courses through which you can hopefully get some fine-tuning on an introduction to Islamic theology and also Islamic epistemology, and also how they're related. Like these two fields are related. So to begin with, myself, my name is Shweib. I'm an instructor at Balagh Academy. Alhamdulillah, I've been an instructor for them since 2018. So it's been nearly 6 years. MashaAllah, we've had a very healthy relationship. I am both a student as well as a teacher at Balagh. And I'm very thankful that Dr. Rafaqat and Mufti Abrar invited me to be a part of the Balagh family. I am mostly responsible for the courses that have more of a novel feature to them, like more to do with contemporary subject matters. So things like, Islam and science, philosophy of science, right? Ghazali cosmology, all these courses that you've been seeing for the past few months or so. And even before then, like Islam and evolution, I've mostly been orchestrating those for Balagh. The purpose of today's seminar is to kind of help you understand why are we focusing on theology and epistemology as a basis for this seminar, which will hopefully allow us to kind of explain these two courses that we have in development and which will start next week, in fact. So to begin with, we feel that in the contemporary day and age, that there are a lot of challenges that Muslims are feeling all across the world. And I think all of you, everyone here, is experiencing that. Islam is being critiqued politically. Islam is being critiqued sociologically. Islam is being critiqued jurisprudentially, various aspects, right? And naturally, there are a host of reasons for why this may be. And naturally, I think Muslims have to have a way of engaging with those discussions that is both gripped with the tradition, the Islamic tradition, and also articulate and relevant to the points at hand. One of the biggest discussions that I think Muslims are having at the moment is the whole point of God and God's existence. Do we have basis for those beliefs? Yes or no? Do we have basis for believing the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ? Yes or no? Do we have basis for believing that the Quran is a miracle of Allah? Yes or no, right? And all of these discussion matters I just listed, these are very well articulated in books of creed or books of aqidah. Now, when I use the word aqidah, it usually brings out several connotations, right? When I was young, for example, when I started learning about Islam several years ago, more than a decade ago now, I remember that aqidah was a point of division. That, oh, you're from that aqidah, you're not from our group. Or you're from that aqidah, you're not from our group. And so for me, initially, aqidah was a very divisive word. And I actually hated that word in the beginning because of how much social divisiveness I saw through it. I'm not sure if you guys have experienced that. Do let me know in the chat if you experienced that. But for me, it led to a lot of sectarian differences or group differences, right? And so that's why I was very put off with this word, aqidah, whatever this is. Over time, however, in my own personal journey, I've begun to realize it is in fact one of the most important subject matters that Muslims have to invest time in. Why is that? So aqidah is actually a subject matter that allows you to know what makes you a Muslim, right? Now, what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? Can Muslims, so this is now me engaging with the participants here. As Muslims, I'm assuming that everyone here is a Muslim, right? Because we do have non-Muslims sometimes come into the seminars. So if you're non-Muslim, please forgive me. But assuming everyone here is Muslim, right? Are Muslims allowed to believe that there are two gods? Yes or no? Are Muslims allowed to believe there are two gods? No, very clearly no, right? all of us, we have an obligation to believe that there is only one God, right? Are Muslims allowed to believe that there's a prophet after the Prophet ﷺ? Yes or no? No, clearly not, right? Clearly not. So obviously, there are certain red lines that come up when you have an Islamic foothold, right? What Aqidah does for you is that it helps you draw out those red lines and gives you a field to work within, right? Now, Aqidah is actually level 1. Think of this as level 1. Islamic theology is pretty big. It can get very advanced. So when you first start studying theology, what you learn in these very initial base level texts are just points of beliefs. So if you put, let me ask a question. Let's see who knows, right? This is a trivia question. What is the most basic book of Aqidah in terms of theology? Islamic. What is the most basic book that most Muslims usually kick off with? Yes, very good, Salim, mashallah. It's Tahawiyah, and Aqidah Tahawiyah. Very good. So it's been, for those of you who don't know, you can actually pick up a translation by 𝐁𝐚𝐥𝐚𝐿 from 𝐁𝐚𝐥𝐿 College. It's a wonderful translation. And it's basically a text with just literally 130 points. That's it. So if you read the text, it's literally point number 1, this is the belief. Point number 2, this is the belief. Point number 3, this is the belief, right? And it's a very, very early text. It's a very, very early text, right? What I mean by that, very early in the history of Islam. And one of the, you can say it's been blessed in that pretty much all the groups in Islam treated this as a staple point for understanding creed, right? Now, the thing is, that is a level 1 text in the sense that that is an entry-level discussion on what you're required to believe in as a Muslim. So it talks about things like, what is the nature of God, right? What is the nature of prophethood? What is a miracle? What are our beliefs regarding the companions, right? So who are the big 4? Does anyone know? Who are the big 4 companions of the Prophet ﷺ? The big 4. This is me asking trivia to the group. Who are the big 4 companions of the Prophet ﷺ? Anyone know? So let's see who's. Oh, there's some people who responded. Very good, very good. So the first one is Abu Bakr, mashallah, very good. Umar, Ali, and Usman, mashallah, very, very good. Excellent, very, very good, mashallah. And everyone responded, very good, right? So we have creedal beliefs about these individuals, right? And other companions as well. So these level 1 texts, these Aqidah texts, are just points of belief. Now, if you want to go further than that, why do we believe them? This is where now you start entering the territory of advanced theology. And usually this phase is called ilm al-kalam, right? This phase is called ilm al-kalam. And in these texts, in these now higher level texts, you begin to learn, why is it that you believe in Allah? Why is it that you believe in the Prophet ﷺ? Why is it you believe in the miracle? All of those principles are now justified. So Aqidah is just basic points that you are required to know. And then ilm al-kalam or higher level texts are what you can do to justify those points of belief. And this is where you get these amazing philosophical discussions come about. Is everyone with me so far? Everyone happy so far? The distinction between Aqidah and ilm al-kalam. Everyone happy with that so far? Good, very good. Somebody's asked in the question box, can you please prescribe an English book for ilm al-kalam? Oh, this is a big question, Muhammad. Like, what is a good English book on ilm al-kalam? And here's why. Here's why, right? I will address your question. I will address your question, but just give me some time to kind of bring some information, right? Now, within Islamic thought, we have 2 big branches. Does anyone know what those 2 branches are? So if you have Muslims, immediately there's a sharp cutoff in the beginning. Anyone know what those 2 branches are? So Muslims are divided in these 2 groups. These are the biggest 2 group divisions. Yes, very good, mashallah. So we have Shi'i Muslims, and then we have Sunni Muslims. Very good, right? Now, I'm a Sunni Muslim, Balagh institution, right? And within Sunni Islam, so now focusing on the Sunni strand, we also have different schools of thought, different theological schools of thought, right? So many people, when they start off, they're not aware of that. What they're usually aware of is that the different schools of fiqh, right? The different schools of fiqh. So in Sunni schools, we have the Hanafis, the Hanbalis, the Malikis, and the Shafi'is, right? So for example, in my own fiqh, I follow the Shafi'i madhab, right? Even though my parents, they taught me Hanafi because I was born and raised in Kuwait, and also because I chose to do the Shafi'i studies, I follow the Shafi'i madhab, right? If you're from India or Pakistan, or if you're from Turkey, you are largely, most likely going to follow the Hanafi madhab. So these are largely geographically bound. If you're from Saudi Arabia, you're most likely going to be a Hanbali, right? Malikis, if you're in North Africa, if you're from Libya, from Morocco. So these are usually geographically bound, just because most of the training for a lot of these madhabs, they take place in those regions. This doesn't mean you cannot find exceptions. You definitely can. If you go to Africa, you will find Hanafis. If you go to India and Pakistan, you'll find Shafi'is, you'll find Hanbalis, right? But I'm talking about predominance, right? Predominance, right? So these are the madhabs for fiqh. These are the madhabs for fiqh. Fiqh means jurisprudence, right? Now you may be asking, oh, Shoaib, you're using very big terms. What does jurisprudence mean? So let me break that down. Jurisprudence is to do with learning what is haram and what is halal. Yeah? What is haram, what is halal, and what is neutral, right? So all of us as Muslims, we are required to do certain things, right? And those actions have to be regulated, right? How do you pray to Allah? How do you give zakat? How do you treat your fellow neighbor? How do you treat your fellow human being? How do you treat animals? How do you treat the earth? All of those have moral regulations. Where do those moral regulations come from? They come from fiqh. What is fiqh? It's when ulama, when scholars, they look at the Quran and the Hadith and they derive moral rulings. Everyone with me so far? Is everyone happy with that so far about fiqh and the jurisprudence and the different schools of thought? Everyone happy with that? Just let me know in the chat, yes or no, just to make sure everyone is following. Very good, mashallah, right? So this is fiqh. This is to do with fiqh. This is to do with your moral regulation in terms of what you're allowed to do. Now, theology is a different ballgame. Theology is not about fiqh. Theology is about beliefs, right? Theology is about your beliefs. In other words, it's about the mind, right? What are you as a Muslim required to believe in? What are you as a Muslim required not to believe in, right? So these are the discussion areas within Islamic theology. And within Islamic theology, we have different schools of thought, even within the Sunni camp, right? And this is where I think may not know. So we don't have like one group. We actually have three main groups, right? For example, yes, Muhammad, very good, mashallah. We have the Ash'ari school. This is the school that I personally follow. It doesn't mean I believe the other two are wrong. It just means that this is what I'm more inclined towards. We also have the Maturidi school. We also have the Athari school, right? And to some extent, for historical reasons, which we don't need to get into, you can even historically derive from the Athari school the form of Salafism that we see today, right? To some extent, right? So these are the three main broad camps. And these schools, these different theological camps, they have on a lot of things, they have a lot of common overlap, but sometimes they differ, right? And the challenge that we sometimes find is that people struggle to appreciate what these differences are, right? So for example, in fiqh, you can very easily see whether a person is a Maliki or whether a person is Hanafi. You just look at how they pray. So if I pray from the sides, so if I put my hands on the sides, right? If I put my hands on the side during prayer, which madhab am I following? Does anyone know? If you're from North Africa or from West Africa, if I put my hands to the sides while I'm praying, so I'm not putting my hand here, you're following the Maliki school, right? So you can tell from fiqh. In Aqidah, it's a bit more difficult to tell unless they express it or you can sense from their opinions, right? Now, the point of me kind of putting this out there is just to show is that we also have, co-valid difference of opinions in our theology as well. Of course, the core is the same. The core is exactly the same. But sometimes you get these difference of opinions. So what we wanted to do through Al-Balagh Academy is give people the ability to be able to understand, first and foremost, that there are schools of thought in theology, number one. That's the first thing, right? Just like there are valid schools of thought in fiqh. Number two, we all want to give you a bit of a snapshot of what each school is and how these differences come about, very briefly, not in depth. Remember, this is an introduction to Islamic theology that I will be talking about, right? And also, theology will also allow you to appreciate modern challenges. So from a theological angle or philosophical angle, who can tell me what are some of the challenges that Muslims are facing today? What are some of the philosophical or theological challenges that Muslims are facing today? And in a very worrying amount, Can anyone tell me? Yes, very good. So proof of God, it's related to what ism? I'm talking, give me isms, Muhammad. Give me isms, people. What isms are approaching? Yes, very good. Very, very good. Atheism, right? Scientism, secularism. These are movements that are trying to undermine this through various kinds of arguments. Feminism as well, liberalism as well. MashaAllah, very, very good. Everyone is switched on, right? Now, how do you engage with that from naturalism as well? Salim, MashaAllah, well done, right? So how do you engage with that with your theological hat on? That's what theology tells you. That's what theology tells you. I can tell you from my own experience, I was an engineer. So what I mean by that, I means I was trained in engineering from like zero all the way to the very top. And in engineering, you were told to think in a certain way, right? And I could not understand, for example, how can I believe in science and how do Muslims believe in miracles? It just doesn't make sense. When I started studying Aqidah properly with teachers, then I was able to really appreciate and finally adopt a worldview that made everything, sensible to me. I had like an anchor to ground me. And that's what theology does. That's what theology does. Aqidah, the word aqidah comes from uqd. It means to bind something, to bind oneself, right? And so it gives you that level of grounding. And this does not necessarily mean that aqidah is done purely on a basis that you're just following, like it's like blind following. That's not the case at all. Like I said, all these initial level texts where you just have these points of belief, this is level 1. Then you get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and you begin to see how these axioms or how these points of beliefs can be justified, defended. And of course, ulama have differed. Ulama are human beings, right? Just like we have differences in fiqh, we also have differences in theology. Is everyone with me so far? Everyone happy with that so far? I just want to make sure I haven't lost anyone before I go any further. Yeah, Mohammed, yes, mashallah. Valerie, very good. Mashallah, very good. Okay. Oh wow, I recognize a few of my students here. Oh, very good. Okay, I think a few of my students are here. Okay, mashallah, very good. Okay, very good. So right. So to come back to the topic at hand, when we now look at theology, theology has a very important role to play today, right? Theology has a very, very important role to play today, because we are now seeing, because of increasing amounts of atheism, that people are beginning to lose faith. Let me ask all of you a question. Have you guys come across or heard of stories where either your family members or your friend circles, they have left Islam? Have you guys heard of such stories? So I used to be an imam. So this means like a fake imam, right? So I was made the khatib while I was a PhD student at my university. And that was pretty much my entry point into now hearing about people leaving Islam. Back then it was not so much, but now because of overwhelming exposure to internet and all of that, it's become a huge thing now. Atheism has become a huge, huge thing. So for me, I think that atheism and secularism and scientism, all of these are now very, very important challenges that Muslims need to start addressing. And they need to do it in a way where it's not just because I heard Falan Sheikh said so. It now needs to be a reason-based evidence, right? So I agree with you, Martha. MashaAllah, very good. Look what she said. Martha said, those that I know did not really understand Islam and therefore were tempted by others and believe. So I completely agree that the road to atheism from Islam are many. There are many roads, right? And the motivations to leave Islam are also many. I'm just saying that theology, what the function of theology is that it can help you have a rational establishment to help you at least minimize the effects of those doubts, right? That's the key thing. That's the key thing. And so we felt at Al-Balagh Academy that what we want to do is we want to provide some accessible courses that allows people to understand what the Islamic tradition says, how to appreciate the diversity within the Islamic tradition, and hopefully give people some grip to know that Islam does have rational basis for a lot of these things, right? Everyone with me so far? Everyone happy so far? Yeah. Saima, yeah, taking I can see that as being symptomatic of atheism, of secularism. I can see that being symptomatic. There are many more things. Like in my own experience, in my own circles, I do mostly Islam and science. That's my main area, and proofs of God's existence. And for me, I feel that I have spoken to parents, for example. I will not mention the names, but I've spoken to parents whose kids are in Cambridge. So they're very bright families, very bright kids, but their kids have left Islam. And then I asked them, what did you teach them about Islam? They said nothing. We just put them in a Sunday school, and that was it. I'm like, what does that mean? Do they know? Do they know? Have they studied creed? Like, no. So now it's collateral. It's basically now too late, right? We should never say it's too late. But my point is that you did not give them any basis, any teaching, and the likelihood of them leaving faith is very high. So I feel that there's an urgency, not just for myself, but for many institutions around the world, that this is now an area that needs to be accessible for many, many Muslims worldwide. Okay, that's the motivation, at least from my side and from the organizer side, on why we want to have more accessible courses to do with philosophy, science, and atheism. And theology plays a big role into that. Is that cool? Everyone with me so far? Yeah? Everyone with me so far? Yeah. Okay, very good. So you see here, Saima mentioned, she mentioned an excellent point. She mentioned here in the chat, our parents didn't need that growing up. They didn't realize they needed to be active in learning Islam, can't be passive anymore. Actually, we never should have been passive, but I understand why. So let me add a point to that, Saima, right? Previously, prior to the internet, right? If you had doubts, those doubts would generally be minimized just because of the societal culture, right? But now we're not kind of insulated in sociology because we now have access to information just at our fingertips. Through this one instrument that I have here, I can access every single website on planet Earth to do with atheism and secularism and all of that, right? So we are now very porous on a knowledge front, and that means that ideas, good or bad, spread everywhere, right? So, for example, in the Middle East, if people leave Islam, they cannot make that public, and that's why, for example, people, when they try to research about people leaving Islam in the Middle East, it's taboo. That's why there's no concrete data. But underground, if you live in the MENA region, you find that there are growing hubs of people leaving Islam, right? There are two good books that I recommend everyone to read up on if you haven't come across them. One is called Arabs Without God. It's by Brian Whitaker. This is a journalist who went in the Middle East undercover to try and identify these ex-Muslims, and he found several. And a complementary book to that is The Unbelievers by Simon Cotty. It's a book that studies ex-Muslims who would convert to atheism in the West, Australia, UK, Canada. And both of these are very remarkable. 90% of the reasons are very similar for why people leave Islam. Some, as Martha said, it's to do with perhaps desires, right? Girlfriends, boyfriends, being whatever, following their just desires. Others are to do with knowledge, right? So they try to be self-made scholars, and they try to read the hadith of the Quran themselves. They don't understand the context, conflicts arise, and they leave Islam. Science is a big one. And if you know the biggest atheist on the planet right now, or the face of atheism, who is the face of atheism in the contemporary period? Anyone know? Who is the face? Yes, clearly 100% Richard Dawkins, right? Richard Dawkins, the effects of his works are being felt. It's a 20-year cycle. He published his book in 2006. We're now in 2024, right? In these two books that I mentioned, almost every single participant mentioned Dawkins. Evolution, Dawkins, science. Part of the ingredients, right? Part of the ingredients. So definitely you see that, Saima, okay, actually, let me write this down for everyone. Okay, so the first book is called Arabs Without God. That's number one. Can everyone see it in the chat? I just wrote in the chat. The number two is The Unbelievers by Simon Cotty, right? These are the two books. Can somebody just confirm if you can see them in the text? Arabs Without God and The Unbelievers. Okay, great, alhamdulillah, very good. So those are excellent, really, really good books. I strongly recommend you have a look at those. Great, right? So you can see here there's a real urgency. And just to follow up again what Simon said, that previously in our generation, we didn't need this because we were protected sociologically. We live now in a knowledge-centric society, and now ideas are left, right, and center. And I think now, because of that, we now need to have better accessibility, better resources, better education on Islamic theology. Does anyone know what is another name for Islamic theology in Arabic? Some of the ways that we refer to theology. Anyone know? So Aqeedah is one of them. Ilm al-Kalam is another one. Does anyone know other names? Ilm al-Tawheed is another one. Very, very good, right? Another one, Usul al-Din, very, very good. Al-Fiqh al-Akbar, well done, mashallah aliyah, very good. Ilm al-Tawheed, very good. Usul al-Din. Usul al-Din means what? The foundations, principles of the religion, right? So this is the first foundational study that you have. It precedes before fiqh, before anything else. It's actually the foundation of the Muslim worldview, right? Ilm al-Isma', yeah, that's another name, aliyah, mashallah, very well done, very good. So when we talk about now foundations, this is like the starting point in the construction of the building. Think about the analogy of a building. If the foundations are weak, what happens to the building? Collapses. Particularly if you have no foundation, it's never even made, right? So I think we definitely need to work harder in being able to deliver a lot of accessible resources for theology. Everyone with me so far? I am very sorry if I ask you that. I'm always in teacher mode when I'm speaking, particularly when I can't see people's faces. So that's why I asked for feedback in the chat. Is everyone following me so far? Everyone happy with that so far? Yeah? Just let me know. Ghain, I'm assuming you're trying to say yes. Okay, mashallah, very good. Okay, so giving you that background, let me now show you the two courses that we're offering that are going to be, I think, very helpful in terms of understanding the basis of what I'm saying, right? Bismillah. Can you guys confirm that you can see Google Chrome? It should say Introduction to Islamic Theology. You can, mashallah, very good. Okay. So as I said earlier, the purpose of this seminar is to introduce everyone here to two very important courses that we've worked on. So I've designed these Introduction to Islamic Theology, and the other one, Decoding Islamic Epistemology, has been designed by my friends, Ustad Safrok and Ustad Jamie Turner. I'll get to this in a second. Let me first start with Islamic theology, right? This course, mashallah, is being supported and will be taught by some very senior scholars, mashallah. So don't put me on the same level as these guys. These shuyukh are really on a different level than myself, right? So I'm very, very junior in comparison to everyone here. So we have Maulana Harun Sidat, mashallah. He's an Alamiya graduate, and then he also did his PhD in Islamic studies. Sheikh Amin Khalwadia, he's a giant in the field. He has his own institution called Dar al-Qasim. Mufti Adam, I think many of you know him. He is a very well-renowned scholar. He's actually, I think, under the auspices of Mufti Taqi Uthmani, for those of you who follow from Pakistan. Dr. Rafiqat Rashid, he is one of the founders of Al-Balagh Academy. The other founder is called Mufti Abrar. And then you have Mufti Hanafi, a very lovely individual. He's a very tall personality, mashallah, very, very tall, and one of the most charming individuals you ever see if you get to see him in person. This is the team behind this course, right? Now, what's going to be covered in this course? Let me quickly review this with you. We're going to have a brief overview. So generally in every course, we have an introductory session, right? And then what we want to do is we want to provide you with a history of Islamic theology. This is very important because just like everything else, things evolve, right? Things evolve. The Islamic tradition is 1,400 years old, and naturally theology morphs over time, fiqh morphs over time, and various other disciplines morph over time. So what does that map look like? This is something that will hopefully be covered. So this is like a sketch of the history. We then have the schools of thought, right? Does anyone know why is Mu'tazili theology so important? Why are they so important? What is the importance of the school in Islam? Does anyone know? Why is this school of thought important in our history? Does anyone know? Anyone take a guess? Very kind of very good, right? So Mu'tazili theology was the first constructive theological school that developed an entire worldview. Prior to Mu'tazili theologians, there were various camps, like you had various groups, but no one had a full systematic worldview. Mu'tazili theology is the first of its kind, and that's why we usually study it. Now, this was taken as the paradigm of the day, but then it was later critiqued by Sunni scholars. Sunni scholars, in here I include the three that I mentioned earlier: Maturidi theology, Ash'ari theology, and Athari theology. These three camps had big issues with Mu'tazili scholars. Why and how is something you will learn in this course, right? Why and how. But eventually, over time, Mu'tazili scholars or Mu'tazili theology was displaced with these three as Sunni Islam, right? And that's very important for you to know, because you see that there's a process involved, right? Theology had a process, and eventually what convinced the ulama were just these arguments that were presented by these three schools of thought. Everyone with me so far? Up till point 6? Everyone with me so far? Everyone happy with that? Yeah? Just let me know in the chat, inshallah. Very good, very good, excellent, good. Okay, mashallah, great. Okay, now following that, we then have topical conversations. What I mean by that is, once we kind of give you an overview of each school, we then look at some subject matters that are important here. So we look at some controversies, right? So, for example, is the Quran, is it created? Is it not created? The whole discussion of free will, right? The debates that people had about, divine attributes, the role of reason, right? So many of you, I'm assuming many of you may have come across various conversation points regarding how do you balance reason and revelation, right? We have miracles on the one hand, science tells us something other, right? How do you balance that relationship? This is what's covered. And then finally, into more subtle conversations, we then ended off with, how do you kind of identify what are the borders of belief, right? How do you kind of look at the borders of belief? So how do you know and draw what is the safe zone, what is not the safe zone? And this is what the last two modules discuss. Is everyone cool with this course? Everyone got the overview here? Is everyone cool about it? Yeah? Okay, very, very good. Before I move on to the next course, does anyone have any questions about this? As you can see here, think of this as like a primer. Think of this as like an introductory overview to Islamic theology. That's how you should treat this. Any questions about this? If there are no questions, guys, just type in no, then I know I can move on to the next course. Not yet. Very good. MashaAllah, excellent. Very good. Okay, cool. In this course, guys, epistemology. So first and foremost, let's define the terms, right? What is Islamic epistemology? What is epistemology? What does epistemology mean? Anyone know? What is epistemology? What does the term mean, epistemology? Exactly. Very good, mashallah. Excellent, guys. Epistemology is the study of knowledge. How do you know things? How do you justify things? What are the sources of your belief, right? And what's very interesting is, and this is the connection between theology, in the first level text that you study, the base level text, it's just points of beliefs. As you get higher and higher, the first part of these later, more advanced books is a section on epistemology. Because in order for you to know how you can defend, articles of belief, you need to know what are your sources of belief, right? Can anyone tell me what is a source of belief in Islam? Just one. Can anyone tell me? Sharh al-Aqaid, very good, mashallah, very good. Sharh al-Aqaid, you can see that definitively, Aliyah, very good. So Saimat, that is a source of belief, but even prior, like how do you know the Quran is a basis of belief, right? How do you know that? Very good, Aliyah, mashallah, very good. Aql, your reason, khabar, as-sadiq, right? Truthful accounts, and al-hiss, right? Al-hawas al-khamsa, the five senses, right? So we actually have detailed conversations in some of these kalam treatises, whether you study books like the Iqtisad by Ghazali, Sharh al-Aqaid, right? All of these, higher level texts, they have in the beginning a detailed introduction to epistemology and why we have these as resources in our rationality, right? Why do we believe in reason? Why do we believe in truthful accounts? Why do we believe in the five senses? We actually study this in depth. And this is why this course was developed, because it will help you appreciate those things, right? So this course, is everyone with me so far? Does everyone see the link between Islamic theology now and epistemology? Everyone see that link? Just let me know in the chat, inshallah. If everyone can see that, yeah, great, mashallah, very good. So as I said, this is developed by two scholars. Ustad Safar Chaudhry is a very, very, very knowledgeable individual, mashallah. He's a very good all-rounder. You will have a lot of fun with him as a teacher. He's a lovely guy, very easy to talk to. Same thing about Jamie. Jamie was in Turkey. He was studying there. He now is a PhD student doing epistemology on Ibn Taymiyyah, for those of you who know him. So he's a very, very top lad, mashallah. So again, just to kind of give you an overview here. Here we have the same thing. We have introduction. What is religious epistemology? What is Islamic epistemology, right? How do we know things? And here what they do is that they focus on different aspects, right? So for example, how do you know historical knowledge? Why do we need to know historical knowledge? Because we need to know about how hadith are transmitted, right? That's something you should know, right? How do we form ijma'? How do we form consensus? That's also an epistemic discussion. And number 5, kalam epistemology. What are the sources in kalam, right? 6, natural theology. Does anyone know what the field of natural theology is all about? What does natural theology mean today? Anyone know? What does natural theology mean today? It's a specific area in philosophy. Does anyone know what natural theology is? Very good, Alia. I think this is a student of mine. I have a feeling. I'm not sure. So it's the opposite of real theology. Very good. But natural theology means, right? You're using reason, experience to prove God's existence, right? Or understand God. You use reason and experience. This is contrasted with revelational theology or systematic theology or revealed theology, where you talk about, mashallah, very good. This is one of my, what's it called, hardest working students, mashallah. Yeah, revealed theology is to do with through revelation as well, right? Fitrah, everyone knows about the fitrah, right? So there's this understanding that we seem to have this innate entity in us, right? Has everyone heard about the fitrah? I'm assuming everyone has. Everyone know about the fitrah? Yes? Is this like a thing that we talk about? But what does it exactly mean in Islam? This is where you see differences, right? So believe it or not, the fitrah is agreed upon. Everyone agrees that there's a fitrah. But what is inside the fitrah? How do you characterize the fitrah? There's disagreements here. There's disagreements here, right? So let me ask all of you a question. This will hopefully kind of give you a teaser into theology and epistemology, right? Let me ask all of you a question, right? How many of you believe that there's objective morality? How many of you believe, and by objective morality, I mean that there are fixed laws of code of morality, right? There are these fixed moral codes. They're objectively true. They can never be changed. Valerie said yes. Martha said yes. What about the rest of the folks? Do you believe that morality is objective? Tanveer said yes. What about the rest of the folks? Do you believe that, morality is, I feel that, but they may need to be applied in context, okay? Quiet and maybe. So believe it or not, there are people who have disagreed about this in the Islamic tradition. Some people say there's no objective morality. Some people say there are. Right? So you'll study those differences, hopefully through these courses, right? You'll study those differences, right? So in some contemporary discussions, so one thing that everyone needs to be clear about, right, is that the human being has 3 dimensions, right? 3 dimensions. You've got the body, right? You've got the mind, and then you've got the heart, right? Those are the 3 dimensions. The body is regulated through fiqh, right? How do we worship? How do we engage with people? That's the dimension of fiqh. It regulates your body, what to do, what not to do. Aqidah or ilm al-kalam, what it does, it helps you regulate your beliefs. And tasawwuf or Sufism regulates your heart. These are the 3 dimensions of the Islamic literature. These are the 3 main things. And all of these 3 things have to be directed to what? Allah. All these things have to be directed to Allah. So fiqh, kalam, tasawwuf are not end goals. They're ways of gaining proximity to Allah. That is, they're not aspired for themselves. They're aspired to reach proximity to Allah as best as you can. That is their goal. That is mission, right? Is everyone with me so far? Everyone with me so far? Just let me know in the chat, yes or no. So you've got the body, mind, and heart. They're the means, exactly. MashaAllah, very good. Yeah, mashallah, very good. Yeah, they're the means, right? Now, why do I say that, right? Because in Islamic epistemology, we also have room for spiritual experiences, right? We also have room for spiritual experiences. Um, we have accounts where the companions, they had dreams, right? We had accounts of the people seeing the Prophet ﷺ in their dreams, right? Kashf, very good, right? Dhawq, excellent, very good, right? So how do we understand this in Islam? That's a very important question. Hmm? Does everyone see the basis of why I mentioned those three things? Mind, body, heart. Everyone got the idea now why I mentioned those three things? Because unfortunately, what happens sometimes is that kalam is very rational, right? It's very rational in its approach, right? But reason is not the end all and be all. In addition to reason, we also believe that there are spiritual realities, right? And not everything can be defined by reason. Not everything. This doesn't mean that Islam is non-rational or irrational. It means that Islam allows spaces in which reason cannot go into. Does that make sense to everyone? Everyone clear about that? Just a yes in the chat. Let me know, inshallah. Yeah, mashallah, very good. Very, very good. Cool, excellent. All right, okay. And finally, the last module of this course is to do with how do we understand epistemology in da'wah purposes, right? How do you understand it in da'wah purposes? So when we engage in explaining Islam, what are the mechanisms like in terms of the epistemic framework that we're using, right? So that's something that this course will hopefully help you understand, right? So that's an overview of both of these courses, and that's what I wanted to convey. I'm not happy to take in any questions that you may have, so this is your opportunity to do so. So yeah, just this is the place for you now to put in whatever you want, contribute to whatever you want to say. So we have one point from Martha. Once you've seen a miracle, you either have to believe it or go crazy, right? So that's an interesting discussion, Martha, right? So what are the basis of beliefs for miracles, right? What are the conditions and qualities of to define a miracle, right? That's also something that we've discussed in the Islamic tradition. So let me ask all of you a question. Right? Do Muslims believe in prophetic miracles? Yes or no? Do Muslims believe in prophetic miracles? Yes or no? The prophets committed miracles? Yes. Okay, very good, right? Do Muslims believe in stuff like jinn possession? The jinns can do miracles. The jinn can do things that defy the laws of logic. Do Muslims believe in that? Yes or no? Yes, right? We do believe that, right? Do Muslims believe that awliya, these very pure, noble individuals, they can do miracles as well? It's not just prophets, awliya. Do we believe that in Islam? Yes or no? Yes, we do. We do. Yeah, karamat, very good, excellent. Yeah. So we have various kinds of miraculous things in Islam. What is the division between these? That's where epistemology comes in. And we'll study that hopefully through these courses. Hopefully, inshallah. Any questions, guys? Any questions or any points that you want to share? Anything that I can clarify? I hope that from my side, the importance of theology and epistemology is now clear, and I hope that inshallah you do sign up for the courses. But any questions that I can entertain or respond to, let me know in the chat, inshallah. No, I don't see anything yet. I'll add one more thing before I close it off. Right? Oh, what's happening? Oh, okay. This is just yeah. Are these classes up for signing up? Yes, Simon, you can sign up for these. So we have registrations going on, and so you can see the messages. You can actually sign up for these right now, inshallah. Right? So I'll add up with just one thing, and that is that take the challenges today very seriously, right? I do believe that theological sciences are very important, more so important than they were ever before, just because of being knowledge-centric. I think that believing in God or believing in Islam just because my parents believe in so is no longer necessarily the safest route to take. Now, just to be clear, imagine if there's a farmer far removed from society, he's praying his 5 times a day, no need to bug him. As long as he's just, worshiping Allah, let him be, right? Let him be. But for those of us who are involved in now urban societies and we're engaging, and these doubts and shubhat are always in our pathways, this is now very, very important to address. It's incredibly important to address, right? So I do encourage all of you to take theology very, very seriously. It helped me a lot in my personal journey, a lot. I cannot explain how important it was in my development as a Muslim. Alia is asking, is there a plan for future courses on philosophy and theology after? Inshallah, Alia, there's always plans. Al-Balagh is doing, I think, very well. So remember, Al-Balagh is a seminary, right? They do Alamiya programs. So you can definitely sign up for the Alamiya program if you want to, take that path. And we are always trying to develop new things. Like, for example, last semester, we had a course on AI, artificial intelligence, Islamic thought, right? So we're trying to always push new things. This semester, we're doing introduction to philosophy and introduction to the history of Western philosophy, right? So always new things will be happening, inshallah. There's a student who's raised their hand. I don't know who that is. Alim, did you want to say something? Alim? I don't seem to be getting anything through. All right. Okay. So yeah, Alim, if you wanted to say something or if you wanted to drop a message, let me know. I just noticed that you've been raising your hand. Right. Okay. Ali, did I answer your question? Let me know. Simon, if I answer your question, let me know. Are there any questions, guys? Anything that you may want to ask regarding either of these two courses? Or anything else related to theology? You can ask anything else related to theology. Alhamdulillah, I'm glad that was addressed. MashaAllah, very good. Okay. One more thing, and I think this is something that you can see in the chat as well, that Al-Balagh recognizes that people come in from different backgrounds, and if you want scholarships, this is something Al-Balagh supports and provides. Saima is asking, I have a feeling I know this, Saima. Okay, any neuroscience and theology course in the works? Not yet, but there will be. But we do have courses on Islamic psychology. This is actually a course that is run and developed by Dr. Rafaqat Rashid, one of the founders of Al-Balagh Academy. So for example, actually I can share that with you. We have a course on near-death experiences. One second. Near-death experiences. One second. I'm sure I can find. Just give me a second. Near-death experiences. One second. Yes. All right. I can. Can you guys see? Can you guys see this? It should say near-death experience in afterlife, Islam, science, and history, right? So here you've got a lot of things to do with the soul, psychology, afterlife. So this may be of importance to you. We also talk about medical sciences, NDEs, the psychology of NDEs, that kind of stuff. So that may be of interest to you, Saima, if you're into that stuff. So that's a course that's for which the registration is still going through. It actually starts 18th of Feb. Yeah, so you've got ages away. So you can still sign up for that if you're interested. I hope that gives you something to think about. Will a course be developed on what a purely Muslim society would like as a culture with no Azra? Oof. Martha, you see, the thing is, like, Muslims have always, what's the right word here, right? So I think that it's hard to say what a pure Muslim society is, because Muslims have always been in porosity with other cultures, right? For example, theology, believe it or not, was largely influenced by Greek philosophy, right? It was also influenced by Hindu philosophy, right? We also had Hindu influences. So the engagements with wider societies has always been there. But what does a pure society look like? I'm not sure if I'm the best person to ask, just because I'm not a sociologist or a politician. But there are courses that we have on secularism that Al-Balagh offers that may be able to provide some insight. Wallahu alam, God knows best, right? Saima, yes, I'm sure it has elements for you to look into. Alhamdulillah, very good. Any other questions, guys? Any questions? Someone asked about, okay, so somebody's asking about a book on Ilm al-Kalam in English. Kubra Liqiniyat by Dr. Ramadan al-Bouti would be excellent. The translation by the English. Yeah. So you can find several books on Ilm al-Kalam, right? Kubra Liqiniyat is by the late Dr. Ramadan al-Bouti. He wrote a book on Ilm al-Kalam. There are others that you can read up if you're interested. The Iqtisad by Imam Ghazali. It's personally my favorite text. Imam Sanusi's al-Barahin, right? That's another one that you can find that's also been translated into English. You can find what else? What else is there? I'm trying to think. In Arabic, there are many. For example, Matalib al-Aliya by Razi, Shahr al-Aqad, you can definitely read up on. But in terms of English, I think those are the only two that I know of: Kubra al-Yaqiniyat and Iqtisad by Ghazali. Thank you, Asif, for pointing that out. Any other questions, guys? I don't see any other questions. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that this information was very helpful and it gave you some things to think about. If you do sign up for the courses, we look forward to hosting you, and hopefully you can have some discussions with the teachers that can benefit you, and likewise you benefit them. But thank you once again, and do pray for us. Al-Balagh Academy is trying its very best to offer various mediums and courses that can facilitate the Muslim world. And inshallah, yeah, pray for Muslims around the world, and I hope to see you inshallah in one of these courses. Until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone. Have a wonderful day, evening, wherever you are in the world. Bye-bye. Salam.